And welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to the podcast, the Souls Roundtable. It's been a long time, but I'm happy to basically be back. It's me, as usual. It is I, the old hunter.
Yes, and it is I, the Darkest Soul VA. It's nice to see you all, people. Hope you had a good year.
I hope we've all had a good year. It's good to basically be back on the podcast for a little bit, considering how long it's been. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm. And it's summer. It's time to get out of school and basically have fun in the summer and the summer breeze, catch some waves, and do a lot of fun activities. And boy, oh boy, we got a lot of articles for you today.
We've got 3 special articles, 2 to do with Final Fantasy, and 1 to be specially that I thought just basically throw out there because I thought it'd be interesting to talk to and basically covers everything I want to talk about in one stream so I don't have multiple problems. You know, sometimes it's just so difficult to remember every stream you've done, honestly, isn't it?
Yes. So, allow me to get this articles on the way.
So, all right, let me just join up for a second. All right.
So, today's article is on Final Fantasy developers were once working on a Bloodborne-style new IP. Final Fantasy fans rediscovered that Final Fantasy XVI producer Naoki Yoshida was once working on a Square Enix Bloodborne-style new IP. Speculation surrounding the upcoming release of Final Fantasy XVI has drawn some attention to the game's producer, Naoki Yoshida, recently. Yoshida is a popular figure at Square Enix due to his successful Producer's Letter events for Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy XIV aren't Yoshida's only projects from Square Enix, though. Details were recently rediscovered regarding a canceled game Yoshida worked on that he described as similar to Bloodborne.
Okay, so that's very interesting, isn't it? We all know. So we all know that Bloodborne has its own unique game among the Souls-likes, isn't it?
Yes, it is very, very unique.
In the sense that basically let's think about it for 2 minutes. Let's think about it. For example, Bloodborne is more Lovecraftian, Van Helsing-like.
Yes, it's a more gothic and Lovecraftian aesthetic and theme to the whole game, I would say, genre. Even though it is more of a Souls-like genre game, but it's very more fluent it's more aggressive and not so defensive if we're looking at it from a technical standpoint in terms of combat.
Considering the fact that if we play like before Dark Souls 1 and 2, the emphasis was more on defensive and strategic and basically timing your attacks.
Yes. Yeah. The news is surprisingly somewhat old, and it was originally written in the book Yoshida Uncensored, which was released years ago. It took so long to get noticed, and as it's only available in Japanese. Reset Era user Dreamboom has called it attention to it, sharing multiple...
Hello, Tata. Welcome to the podcast. You just arrived just in time.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Yes, Tata. Thanks for joining. I'd appreciate it so much. I hope you enjoy it, and do let out your thoughts because we're always looking for more for more perspectives on this thing.
Yes, we very much are. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it.
Anyway, you were sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, it is fine. Sharing multiple fan translated sections of the book in which Yoshida and other Square Enix devs talked about Square Enix built Bloodborne-like, and to be clear, Square Enix Bloodborne was in development before From Software's game release, making it all a bit eyebrow-raising.
So you're hang on, I'm curious. Was this like...
Apparently from the article, this was in development before Bloodborne was released.
So I have a feeling that when they saw Bloodborne, they got like an inspirational idea from it, maybe?
Yes.
Maybe they saw Bloodborne's gothic style and thought, oh, Final Fantasy, Lovecraftian style. Well, we didn't know it was Lovecraftian until after the game released. Let's be frank. Yes. We all thought it was basically like Van Helsing or werewolf-like. You know how it was. Honestly, between the...
It threw a big curveball.
we admit it. We thought it was more Van Helsing, and then it took a right turn to cosmic horror of all things.
Took a big ol' right turn down Lovecraftian lane.
Yeah. Alright, let's continue.
The crossover between the two is incredible. Yoshida's Bloodborne was not an RPG, but he says it was a fairly hardcore action game. That in itself is a rare direction for a Square Enix game. Further, Square Enix game featured a gothic style that included many of the same weapons and guns that Bloodborne eventually featured. So it had to do a lot of something that was similar to Bloodborne. Interesting. Yoshida says that the first time he saw Bloodborne, he couldn't help asking, "Where have I seen this before?"
This just brings up one question. Did apologies. So did Yoshida create so now this is just big more questions. Did Miyazaki and Yoshida come up with similar ideas, but one didn't come to fruition, but the other did?
Or maybe so. Or maybe there's something else at play. Like maybe one took an idea from another and basically applied it to their game, or maybe vice versa.
It could be, but let's also not forget that. Let's also not forget. From at this point was officially known as the Souls. Was basically known as the what's the word I'm looking for? Hardcore.
The creator of hardcore Souls-like aesthetic, difficulty-like games.
Yes, that was basically what From was known for. At that time. Now, forgive me for any Final Fantasy fans watching this currently, but I thought at the time Final Fantasy was more cutscene and story focused heavy than gameplay heavy. Case in point, I was playing Final Fantasy 13 and still am on my Twitch. So if you want to see me play it, come over. I'm trying to get back to streaming on Mondays and Tuesdays, but I digress.
Yeah.
But at that time, they were focused more on basically more railroading
RPG mechanics rather than I would say of a more adventure-esque like mechanic that basically Dark Souls and the Dark Souls 2 had. Since I would say Final Fantasy is more casual in terms of playability and does not require a lot of focus that Dark Souls games usually tend to, because Dark Souls games are not that easy to pick up and play, but they are very addicting once you know exactly what to do.
I think and we all know why, because that drive of basically just one more time, I'm gonna basically kill him this time, basically is just like the drive of just basically just trying to get things over and done with.
Yeah. It's just that addiction, man, that pure addiction, that one thing, as soon as you kill that hard boss, it's that feeling that you will never, ever get. And then basically another game that's too casual. But might I digress. The article continues with, while there was some surprising similarities between the two projects, the Square Enix action game was very different in other ways. The biggest difference is that Yoshida's project was a multiplayer-focused game.
I'm going to come over it. I hate multiplayer-focused games because, you know what's the problem with multiplayer-focused games? Once the server dies, you've got nothing but
exactly. Thank you for bringing that up.
I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but it's the truth. The minute the servers go down on the game, it's basically useless. How many people have bought Evolve when it first came out and now have a game that's practically unplayable?
Or, in this case, to be more recent, what happens if you bought, I would say, Back 4 Blood, and the game servers for that were not, how would I say, optional or operational at the time.
You've just basically got a game that's basically unplayable.
Yes.
I know people hate saying, well, you're just a hater. Well, for me, I like a game that's got a nice story, beginning, middle, end. Something that you have worked to achieve it. Not just basically sitting there grinding away for your 10th blibbin' thing that's not going to do anything besides just help you kill things faster. Where's the...
Not to mention, what happens for people that don't have a good internet connection but just want to pick up a game and just play it? Like, that basically is inaccessible to them if they don't have good internet. And that's, I find, kind of unfair at times.
No, it is completely unfair. The fact is that basically, how am I? I got fiber optics now, so good for that. Before I didn't, and let's just say I didn't have the most comfortable experience playing games. And let's not forget the past hiccups I had with my podcast when it was this time. You know it was the worst at this time. Remember?
Exactly.
Now that I've got a stable internet connection that's fiber optic, I've been having a smoother, how do I put this, time?
Smoother and more functional time with the playing multiplayer-like games.
Or streaming my podcast. So I think it basically helped that, let's be thinking, I know people say, but Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and the rest are have multiplayer, and the multiplayer is optional, not the main focus.
Yeah. So the article continues. It was intended to be an asymmetrical competitive experience like Evolve. Okay.
And I just brought up Evolve, and I didn't read that part, by the way. I just brought it up by
Well then. Wow, what a coincidence. With a team of 4 players facing off against a single strong enemy. Well, that would okay, thank goodness it was delayed a little bit. It also had some sci-fi elements, though it could be argued that Bloodborne flirted with sci-fi horror too.
Cosmic horror. It's a little different. I'd argue that
it's a little bit different, but cosmic and sci-fi have similarities and differences as well.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So Square Enix project was ultimately canceled. Yoshida doesn't explain why, but does joke that if it hadn't been canceled, he'd probably still be trying to finish it today. It sounds like a challenging project, to say the least. In retrospect, a lot of games have tried to recreate not just the 4v1 experience, but also Dark Souls' style of experience and failed. Square Enix pulled the plug early. While it's disappointing that...
Hang on.
Sorry.
Okay, 4v1 experience with Dark Souls style mechanics is not going to work very well. We all know what ganks is Dark Souls. It's a headache.
Yeah.
So if I don't know if Yoshida was going to do a Souls-like. The article seems like he wasn't. It's just that it's going to be Bloodborne-esque. So similar to Bloodborne, so not an exact style. But the problem is that if he did with a 4v1 with Dark Souls style mechanics, raise your hands as to say it's going to be very annoying to play.
I bet it would have been very difficult and very hard to play, and even had little to room for replayability at times.
Don't get me wrong. I like the Souls combat, but me and Darc can both agree it can get a little repetitive at times.
It can be repetitive at times, even though it is hard to get used to the controls. But that is very similar to other games and such.
I know most games ever Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. If you name a game, it has a repetitive system. But the problem is that Dark Souls isn't it's not a traditional hack and slash, if you know what I mean.
It's not like Skyrim.
People like to say Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Elden Ring and Sekiro hack and slashers. I disagree with that very much because hack and slashers
it's much more complex than that.
It's more about timing. I think the closest idea is maybe Ninja Gaiden. The closest.
Ninja Gaiden, yes.
But that's just my opinion on it. So anyway, let's finish this off.
Yeah. While it's disappointing that Bloodborne fans won't get the opportunity to experience a Yoshida-made Square Enix game to take on the experience, there's a positive outcome. Not just Yoshida, but also Final Fantasy XVI's game director also previously worked on the Bloodborne-like, among other devs. Final Fantasy XVI may never have gotten made without this previous game, for better or worse.
Okay, from what I've seen how do I put this? I've seen plenty of trailers of Final Fantasy XVI, and it looks like it's like they're making it look like Dark Souls, not like Final Fantasy Origin, like actual Dark Souls. It's got more.
Yeah.
The atmosphere looks similar to Dark Souls. The atmosphere looks similar to Dark Souls. The feeling. I don't know about the combat. It looks just like any. It looks just like one of Square Enix's annoying hybrid systems. I will sit on this perch and completely say it that having both systems makes it even worse because you've got the annoyance of the turn-based combat with the annoyance of the real-time combat. The number of times I've had it where I'm basically trying to dodge an opponent while I'm trying to scroll for the healing items, because I have to keep my fingers off the screen of the opponent. It's just so frustrating. I don't get it. I don't know how Final Fantasy fans can keep defending the combat system when it's just bad.
Yeah.
Call me a little
old-fashioned. Speaking of Final Fantasy Origins, we can go into the next article.
How about we discuss this a little bit longer, then we can get to the next article, because there's a lot to unpack here, don't you think?
Yes.
You can move your mouse off the screen of the thing. What I'm trying to say is that, how do I put this? what is it with? Okay, this is just me a little bit, but what is it with Dark Souls and sci-fi being like people want a sci-fi Dark Souls? Why is that?
I think it's because the Lovecraftian aesthetic that basically Bloodborne has initially stated has only increased due to, I would say, the amount of like cosmic horrors and like the feeling of something that I would say something feature-esque would be a good theme for a Dark Souls game. But you also got to make sure and notice that you notice how basically Dark Souls has never made a shooting-esque like game, because usually in sci-fi there's a lot of shoot 'em ups.
Mm-hmm.
It's because shoot 'em ups have not worked well with Dark Souls yet, and From Software has shown no interest in doing so. I mean, don't get me wrong, a future-esque, like I would say, sci-fi Dark Souls game has done well in the past, which I could show for an example.
Remnant of the
that be
Ashes.
Fallen Order Star Wars, but even that's a little bit far-fetched and stretch of the truth, because it's just very hard to emulate that, because you also got to take in consideration of like the mechanics, the game flow, the challenge, the difficulty, the fairness and replayability and stuff like that.
And if there's one thing Square is not known for, it's basically being the fairness of the challenge. You know how Final Fantasy games go.
Yeah.
The minute you go to the higher levels, they just throw you with everything in the kitchen sink. So it feels like that, and I feel like that's the problem with. I think that's one of the major issues. Now I've seen I want. This is going to lead on to what we're going to be talking about next, but this is just my little rant. From the gameplay I've seen of Final Fantasy Origins, this is the same problem I think I saw with Bloodstain. You know how in like most Souls games, when you hit something, you can feel actually like the connect. How do I put this? It doesn't feel like you're hitting a brick wall, correct?
Yes, it basically doesn't make you stagger as much.
Yes, there's actually some weight into the attack. Some weight, not weight, but there's enough. There's like weight to it, and I feel
it doesn't make the combat feel so floaty.
Mm-hmm. That's like it's grounded, and I think that's what like games like Fallen or like not or what was that? The first Souls, like the one that was considered clunky Souls.
The first clunky one that I noticed was I would say Neo.
No, not Neo. Which came out before Neo. It was like I can't remember the name.
Oh. Was it it was something like Kingdom's Edge or something?
No. It wasn't that one. It's getting a sequel soon. Give me a second. Let me just look it up. Lords of the Fallen. That was it.
Lords of the that one, yes.
Remember that one? The one that basically got critically panned by both the Souls and critics by the fans? Souls fans?
Yes.
Because the combat felt like it was weighty. Because seeing the gameplay, the character moved forward when it was basically... It was like he was hitting things while on ice. Don't get me wrong, Dark Souls has that, but it works like if you have the bigger weapons. It makes sense with the bigger ones. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
If it's the medium and the large ones, like the great swords there's still some like weight to them. The character stays in place, and basically you hit things. It doesn't feel like you're skating. And
for an example, they took a lot of inspiration from, I would say, from the manga Berserk, because you notice how in the manga, like Guts usually has a lot of weight whenever he swings the sword, and usually that's in most typical animes and such, you notice how whenever a protagonist has a giant big sword, they just hold it without any weight or basically issue of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's and I will admit that's something that I really hate.
I hate it too. It looks unrealistic. It just looks so flashy. But for the context of gameplay, it works good.
Yeah.
Look, I like it how basically the only time you basically move around like you're on ice is if you're not strong enough to wield the weapons. That makes sense. Tech kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? Because you're not strong enough, the thing pulls you. But you got to have some weight to it. Like you've played, what was it, Code Vein, if I'm correct?
Yeah, Code Vein. Yeah, I played Code Vein.
What was the problem with the combat you found? Was it everything I described to you?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. It's just I felt like as if it was just too floaty, like as if I was just like there was just no weight that was present, or it felt any impact whenever I hit like something that I could like not damage, or something that I could damage, and it even had like the opposite effect and vice versa at times.
I feel like it's because when you see an enemy, they actually react to the hits a lot of the times, don't
Yeah.
they? In Dark Souls,
Yeah, they do.
If you hit something, it reacts. At least that way it feels like it's a sense of impact. I feel like when it's something like in Code Vein, that's the issue. The enemies don't react to your hits.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, people think that's like minuscule, but the thing is, it makes a difference between something that feels visceral and just feels something like you're hitting it with a stick. It's that slight. It's that slight.
It's the little details that are the devil. It's just the smallest of details that add up.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like watching gameplay of Final Fantasy Origins, it has the same problem, which I felt with Neo. Same exact problem. Yes, the little enemies have basically are squishy, so like the normals. But when you get to the bigger enemies, it feels like I'm hitting a brick wall. And I think you're saying, I know, that's what they're supposed to feel like. But even at big enemies in Dark Souls, there's some reaction to them. It's not like they basically shrug their attacks unless they have extra high poise. But in the end, when you hit something big, you feel the impact because they react.
Mm-hmm.
Neo, not so much. And I've already explained why I'm never touching that game again.
Yeah. So, may we move on to the next article?
We may move on to the article. Right. It was and as I said before, Final Fantasy Origins. This is a shame. It's a shame that the game actually came out as mediocre, because this was the first attempt this is actually Square's first attempt at a Souls-likes, but it was a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing but been mediocre review after mediocre review about bad old Origins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like...
Such a shame. Not to mention, they struck gold with Final Fantasy VII. I don't know why they don't say like, hey, we should probably stick with the formula that worked over sometimes, but instead of like trying to,
What?
Like if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Look, this is basically the thing. The master. I'm gonna keep saying this. There are other studios that manage to get the perfect feel of a Souls-like down pattern, like Mortal Shell. They do the Souls-like pretty well with an interesting twist. I feel like, and I will say this, Koei Tecmo is not a good developer for Souls-likes. I get why they wanted to do it, because they wanted to basically get to the whole gravy train of the Souls-likes, hence why they made Neo. Because, let's face it, all the fans of Dark Souls who basically felt betrayed that it was a Western-inspired fantasy were kind of like, ooh, it's actually Japanese fantasy Souls-like. Samurai Souls, as the old saying goes. Until Sekiro came out, and basically that made Neo's game kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, Neo's game just became obsolete as soon as Sekiro hit the shelves.
Which I will continue to say is the far superior one, because at least...
Oh, it definitely is.
The combat is... Everything I said positively about Dark Souls, the combat feels visceral. It feels basically like... It feels like squishy. Like basically when you stab your sword through someone, you can feel that visceral impact. Like it's something squished. Like you basically squished like a very... like Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Well, not Play-Doh, but a very water-filled balloon. You get that satisfying...
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying by that.
Anyway, let's get to this article.
All right. Hopefully no one I'm going to get this too offended, because we're not saying as if we don't like Final Fantasy. I mean, I love Final Fantasy VII.
I've been enjoying Final Fantasy IX quite a bit. So before anybody says, oh, you hate Final Fantasy... I don't mind the series, all right? I'm not one of those people who makes the joke, oh, Final Fantasy. Well, this fantasy's been going on for a while. I'm not that sort of pettiness when I'm in a good mood.
Yeah.
But
don't make me send some red material and summon, a giant dragon to destroy you.
Yes.
All right. With that with the jokes aside, Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a Souls-like that swings so hard it misses. Hey, before we get stuck in, here's the sitch. PC code for Final Fantasy Origin went out a bit late, so the thoughts below are my initial impressions of the game based on the chunk I've played so far, which is about half of the game. This isn't a full review, but I also can't see my thoughts changing. Anyway, let's embrace this chaos.
That's never good. That's never a good sign.
Well, you've been warned.
This kind of reminds me of when I basically did the review on I got in Spurs, and I basically only stood 3 episodes before I just said, quit, I quit. You know it's not good when somebody's not finished it.
Yeah, it really is. Stranger in Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a Souls-like Final Fantasy spin-off that swings so much it misses. Your sole focus is to kill a bad guy called Chaos, and the game provides fights and loot in their hundreds, possibly thousands, to ensure you're beefy enough when the time comes. But cut away the combat and you're left with little, really. Search for anything other than Chaos, and you'll find there's nothing else driving you forwards. You'll finish the game and part as strangers still, probably.
And there's the first problem. If you do a Souls-like, the main focus is exploration. Okay.
Yes.
We all know that we were supposed to ring the Bell of Awakenings in Dark Souls 1, right?
But you had basically infinite potential, and basically anywhere that you could go. If you wanted to go basically down to where Nito was and basically get the Rite of Kindling to basically upgrade your bonfire some more, you could do that. If you want to basically go on where New Londo Ruins was, downstairs, you could do that. You didn't necessarily have to go up to the stairs where basically I would say undead purgatory.
Pause that.
Don't worry, there's no sound plan, don't worry.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry if I reacted. It's just that Square is very picky on their copyright, so I don't need that. I don't need their copyright on my video. Yes. Anyway,
so, Final Fantasy Origin isn't a direct retelling of the original Final Fantasy, but more of a story that takes place in a parallel universe, and it's home to one of Jack Garland, a chiseled bro who'd really like to kill Chaos. He reiterates this a lot.
Second problem. You basically made a character that was a character in a Souls-like. When I get it, it's cool, but most Souls-likes, what makes it cool is that you could be literally anybody. You know,
yes.
The point. You could basically be anybody in a Souls-like. Okay, but you're thinking, well, Wolf. Well, what about Wolf? I just argue that Wolf was like a non-character, if you know what I mean. He was a character, but he didn't really have... He had a motivation to get the prince back because, you know what I mean,
mm-hmm.
Right? Basically, our motivation was to get to the prince. But the thing is, we had our own motivations too. The guy kicked our ass in the gameplay, and we want to get him back for what he did to us.
Yes.
I feel like that's... It depends on the person, but you can agree on that, right? When you first fought Ichiro and he kicked your ass in the first area, you just thought, you know what? I want to get payback on this guy. Right?
Yes. Exactly.
So, if...
The article continues with, he reiterates this a lot and often grunting his displeasure with his quote-unquote friends talking about anything else. Ash, Jed, Neon, Sophia, they're all incapable of normal conversation anyway, often saying things that render any real discussion impossible. Lots of bats in here, says Ash, as bats fly around. Oh yeah, why don't you tell me that cows go moo and grass is green?
This is basically the problem with modern AAA. They have to point out the most obvious things because most developers feel like you're going to basically ignore even the smallest detail.
Yeah, you might as well be babysitting me at the same time.
Uh-huh.
I think I was here once, says Neon, to a resounding...
Oh god, that's never good.
Alright, Jack shares one thing in common with his compatriots. They each carry a glowing alien egg, like the ones you'd win at the local arcade. So, what is this, alien? It seems to be their way of identifying each other as the chosen warriors of light who must rid the world of chaos.
Forgive me if I haven't played the first Final Fantasy game because I wasn't born when it first came out.
Yeah, neither was I.
But from what I've understood, basically it was like a... I don't think there was like a magic stone. It was basically, you're the chosen heroes, go save the day. I think that was it.
I'm conceived this is because their parallel universe is actually a fabrication swimming in Jack's mind. I picture Jack, who's bigger than everyone else in his year, playing pretend with his classmates. He's the hero calling the shots as they mime sword swings before the bell rings. This would explain why the story bounces around with as much cohesion as two space hoppers tumbling down the M5. Jack doesn't care for anything other than chaos, cutting dark elves off mid-sentence with a scowl and asking them if said chaos is involved.
I think this is the one issue again. I think going back to what was the name again?
With who?
With the developer, the Koei Tecmo. Jesus. You know how, like in Neo, basically it was not an overworld; it was just basically mission-based, which is always annoying for Souls-likes.
Yeah, it really was.
Because when you you know how in Souls-likes, when you basically open a secret shortcut, it stays open no matter what. However,
oh yeah, definitely.
However, in a mission by mission, the game doesn't do that normally. So if you say leave the area because it was basically giving you a hard time, you wanted to go for an easier area, and then come back and saying, "Oops, the area is closed because the game's decided to close the doors."
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I really feel like Koei Tecmo doesn't understand it's important to basically have good level design when you're making a Souls-likes, because having a mission by mission, it basically just makes it more of like doing a chore.
Mm-hmm. Now, the article continues on with, his thirst for chaos is undeniably hilarious, but it overrides any semblance of a meaningful story with impact. Comedy value that can make up for shallow characters, and a universe that's built more through exorbitant text box than anything else. This is starting to sound like Horizon Zero Dawn. Just kidding. It's a joke, people. It's a joke. All right. It's ironic that Jack's sole desire to kill chaos ends up killing your own desire to play. Very well said. Mm-hmm. And basically, this shows all the eggs.
Why they put the eggs on and not just maybe some like a mark or something? Final Fantasy.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not green. That's black.
Yeah, it does look black. Mm-hmm.
The game's jittery story means the only thing keeping you engaged is the Souls-like rhythm of combat and exploration.
And that's...
Seeing as it's Team Ninja, everything from the level design to the bare knuckle brawling has Neo plastered all over it.
And as I've always said, Neo is not even the bottom barrel of a soul, is basically bottom barrel Souls-like.
Mm-hmm.
As
in short, you got an overworld map that'll send you off on missions set in retooled versions of iconic Final Fantasy locations, the Mako reactor from Final Fantasy VII, pirates in a coral cave, corals lurking in a forest. They are recognizable, sure, but their grandeur is lost to samey corridors and flat rooms filled with a few monsters. Your aim is to batter these enemies, move between checkpoints, and beat the final boss.
That sounds boring.
You're telling me.
Look, I know people are going to just basically say, well, that's what you do in Dark Souls, or Bloodborne, or Sekiro, or Elden Ring.
That is not what you do in Dark Souls and Bloodborne. It's much more complex than that.
Mm-hmm. You're basically trying to either grow stronger, trying to understand the layout of an area so that way you can know the best. Let's face it, when we go to a new area, we're always cautious, aren't we? Like, we never...
Oh, yes, extremely cautious.
Because we don't know where the enemy placements are. We don't know what's going to be then around the corner to basically eat us. So we're always like...
And they can always be very different and very, very, very hard to get around.
Yeah, so we're always basically on our toes. If this is the case, I feel like this is just basically go to an area, kill. There's no, there's no suspense in the game. There's basically, here's another area. Just kill the thing, move along. Sounds rather tedious and boring. Instead of basically, okay, I feel like when I play Dark Souls, I look like when I go, what's around this corner? And if I see something move, I think, nope. I'm gonna go back because I'm gonna go back and level up my souls.
Yes.
I feel like this is just basically dumpty. It's just basically a railroad.
Exactly. So the article continues on. Neo's story isn't great, but it makes up for it with clever intertwining maps with an impeccable combat, which I will admit was good at the time.
I hated it.
Now, hence the words. At the time.
Mm-hmm. Because like me, you've realized the combat is more needlessly complex. Why have a high, low, and middle stance? I get it. It's basically to simulate what the samurai would do, but at the same time, it makes me extra. It basically adds an extra layer of thinking when I'm basically trying to dodge an enemy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it also
Let's just say this. Too much complexity does not equal good game things. Simplicity can be good at times.
And the fact that I hate that the different stances have different hitboxes, which I could never figure out. I tried high stance. I somewhat got it. High stance, the one that does the heaviest attack, seems to have the slower seems to have the minimal hitboxes. Medium stance has an average hitbox. Average.
Yes.
And low stance has the most quick hitboxes. But even then, when I tried to basically stay low stance, because I thought, you know what, I'd rather have the damage is not important for me. Right now, it's just basically getting the iframes I need to basically hit through the attacks. And maybe it was because I had my Souls instinct, because you know how in Souls conditioned us that basically shields are the better way of defending than a weapon? Let's face it, we know that, right? Basically.
Yes.
I feel like that when I played Neo, the fact that I didn't have a shield put me off dodging at blocking at all points, because my brain was instinctively telling me, oh, he's got a sword, therefore I must not block but dodge. That was one of the... You know what I mean?
Yeah. The article continues... Oh, sorry.
I'm just a little tirade here because I hate it when people say you just didn't like it. Yeah, I have my reasons, which I just articulated it very well. The hitboxes were off. The combat was annoying, needlessly complex. And the fact is that basically the enemy designs were more messy than they looked. They were either big thing with big weapon, or little enemy with a lot of speed and nothing. And basically, if it was a 4-limbed enemy, oh god, good luck figuring with the telegraphs.
Yes.
Again,
now the article continues on with the complex loot grind is worth learning because it makes replaying levels an experiment or a power fantasy and not a chore. Final Fantasy Origin retains Neo's strongback combat core, but it also keeps a similar loot grind that feels out of place because there's no real incentive to get involved. The game takes Final Fantasy's job system and ports it wonderfully into a Souls-like template. Jobs are the equivalent of classes here, each complete with their own combos and skill trees. There's loads to choose from, like Mage, Lancer, Ronin, Apologies, and yada 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 yada.
Okay.
Jack can swim. Yeah.
Okay. 3 things. 1, I hated the Diablo-esque looting from Neo. It basically gave me more headaches than you needed.
Yeah.
Second of all,
I would say Diablo things must be only featured in Diablo, not in other games.
Second of all, the point of why we choose a class in Dark Souls is basically we want to basically choose what goes for us. The fact that you can change it basically makes it impossible to balance.
Yes.
Because I know people are gonna. I know I'm strawmanning a lot here, but basically that's my point.
Good.
Sorry, 10 minutes, but I'm going to just basically continue my little ranty rant about my whole problem. I think the thing why we choose the classes is because that way we've got into a mindset. We choose a class that's strong with faith. We focus on faith. Miracles. If we choose a class with intelligence, sorcery, so on and so forth. Yes, you can, and the best thing is you can spec up and make hybrid builds. You could make a strength faith build, a strength dexterity, a dexterity intelligence, so on and so forth. The problem here is I feel like if you basically have multiple classes, it makes it feel less unique and just basically a situational problem. If it works, it works, but this is just my pet grief I have with the blimmin' system.
Well said.
You heard what I said?
Yes, I did.
And you agree with with what I said?
Now, the article continues on with Jack can switch between 2 jobs on the fly at the press of a button, and if you'd like to switch up on one or both roles, you can easily do that with menus, leveling up your jobs, and you'll earn points to spend in these trees and unlock new moves or passive bonuses. The MMA fighter-esque Pug list is a favorite job of mine as it feels distinctly Jack.
And again,
you just pound Skeltus and Toneberries to a pulp with roundhouse kicks and fist flurries. No need for dainty swords or lances when you've got your knuckles.
So here goes again with my problem. Going back to Neo, I hate the fact that you could press a button, switch class in the middle of a fight, basically. When you're in a boss battle, you can't think about, okay, you got spells, but most people are pretty quick, but spellcasters are pretty quick on what they want to do. And plus, the spells still deal damage. But the fact that basically you switch classes kind of makes it more confusing, because if you're in the middle of a heated battle, and basically you say you need a melee class, but you were the melee, but you instinctively pressed for a spellcaster, you know that's going to cause problems pretty quick, don't you?
Yeah, it really is. The flow of combat feels quick and snappy with Team Ninja's signature combo-laden bashiness. Whether you think about the buttons you're smashing or mindless hammer away, you'll look cool. The variety on offer is outrageous. Really, with loads of armor and weapons and moves and stats that shift up and down around, enemies have different types of tags signaled by a little pop-up box above their heads that comes in 3 colors. Pairing lets you steal an enemy's ability and hurl it back in their faces, and it never gets old.
Wonderful.
Some jobs work better.
Wonderful.
Yeah, some jobs work better against others.
Hang on.
Enemies.
Hang on. So, wonderful. Quick time events in the Souls-like. What we need.
Oh, great. Press F to pay respect. Anyone else remember that meme? I certainly don't.
I do. Look. I get it. Flashiness is Koei Tecmo's bread and butter. Look at the Ninja Gaiden series. Or look at the Ninja Gaiden series, and whatever they make is basically flashiness of the... if in other ways, if you know what I mean. We certainly know about Dead or Alive.
Yes, Dead or Alive.
Especially one with a particular sport at the beach. That's certainly flashy.
I can see that.
But the point I'm trying to make, this is again where From is good. They use minimalist, they just make it minimum. Yes, you've got the weapon arts, but that's basically just a deal to basically do additional helping. Say if you've got an enemy that's weak to fire, exemplaire, your weapon art basically lets you do fire damage. Basically, you double the damage. This whole flashiness.
Very simplistic.
And this is the problem people keep saying. And I hate when I have to repeat it. Like you said, just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's good. Complexity and good are 2 separate things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And sometimes they can blend well together, or sometimes they cannot blend well together. In this, however, this is a bad case of it blending well together because it's not.
I'm sure I'm gonna get a bunch of Final Fantasy fans, boys over here, just basically saying I'm just a Souls purist.
Which is a real shame.
Yeah.
But it is their decision to make. Regardless, some jobs work better against certain enemies, but it's largely personal preference that prevails. Most missions just aren't that exciting either, as they're corridor dashes with the odd gimmick like dodging laser beams or finding keys so you can move on to more corridors. No, man, this is not... It sounds more like a shoot 'em up, if anything.
Sounds more like basically a dungeon crawler. And I hate it. Huh? It's true. Basically, you're just going through corridors after corridors. You're just crawling through a dungeon. Yes, you do.
Almost all the fun lies in the purchase or the punches you swing, as there's nothing else driving you forwards. It's certainly not the story or the promise of a new level, and it's gimmick. Eventually, the repetition drags, which robs the loot you're hovering up, or if it's well factored to, suck those epic greaves or hulking halberds into your inventory, and they join the rest of your fast fashion collection. What's the point of optimizing your character's spreadsheet if you're unlikely to go back and flex a designer fit?
Your thoughts?
I think I just see what this guy is saying, and I stand by what he's saying on this. It's just not really that good. It just doesn't add very much good variety.
Quality over quantity, as the old saying goes.
Yes, quality over quantity. That is our lecture and lesson for today. All of Final Fantasy Origins' depth lies in shoving more loot in your wardrobe. not good. Fun lies in crashing and bashing and occasionally laughing at Jack's gruff comments. Otherwise, this does not feel like a Final Fantasy game at all. There's no reason to exist in this world other than to suplex chaos into the dirt, which is
apt.
Yeah, apt, I suppose. So, but its single-minded approach and protagonist means you probably won't be coming back when chaos taps out. So in short, it does not add any good replayability.
Which, as we all know, is basically a death to any Souls-like.
Yes. But hey, don't fret. We got another article that is on the more positive side.
Yes,
as we like to say.
Yes, it's actually more fun than with these two Final Fantasy ones, but I digress.
Mm-hmm. Now, just to let you all know, I love Call of Duty. I am a big fan of the original World at War, original Modern Warfare 2, original Modern Warfare, and I thought they were amazing games with good stories and campaigns, and somewhat very good, decent multiplayers as well.
And the fact that they portray things evenly, unlike, say, more recent Call of Duty games.
Yeah. Vanguard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, I'm glad you asked, because Elden Ring pulls off a rare feat, outselling Call of Duty.
Yep. A feat that...
Pop the champagne bottles, we have something to celebrate for. Oh, boy.
Yep. As a niche Souls-like beats a mainstream game. Well, that's not something you hear every day.
The NPD says From Software's RPG is the U.S.'s biggest seller over the past 12 months, beating Call of Duty Vanguard, which I will admit is not that much of a big feat, but it's still a big feat overall.
And then we can also argue that Call of Duty games haven't exactly been good, as you said, since Modern Warfare 4.
Yeah, or Black Ops 2, depending on how you look at it, but I digress.
Same here.
Here's something we didn't expect to write. Elden Ring is the United States' best-selling video game of the past 12 months, according to the NPD group, beating out Call of Duty franchise that typically dominates the calendar year after year. It's important to remember that Elden Ring launched on February 25th.
Wow, it's already been that long since Elden Ring came out? Jesus, time flies.
Mm-hmm.
It's been like,
a
3 months?
year, and boy, oh boy.
3 months.
Let's just say Matt, the NPD's group's top analyst for the video games market, revealed that numbers in a Twitter thread Friday morning that covered several other trends NPD measured for April. On Tuesday, Elden Ring's publisher Bandai Namco Entertainment told investors that the game had sold 13.4 million units worldwide, adding another 1.4 copies to the 12 million it boasted by mid-March. The game's meteoric launch led lead developer From Software to quote out in March as the beginning of a new franchise that will expand to other media. Elden Ring is a collaboration of director Hideki Miyazaki, the director behind the Souls games as well as Bloodborne and Sekiro, and George R.R. Martin, the author of the Song of Ice and Fire fantasy series that was adapted into HBO's Game of Thrones series.
Which sadly sadly didn't have the most happiest of endings.
Yeah. Season 8 sucked. Okay, anyway.
I doubt you're going to get anybody here crucifying you for saying that. I'm sorry if there's not much talking about it, but compared to the other two articles, this is more positive, and my issue problem is if it's more positive, I have less to complain about. The more negative is, more. So we're just basically just for this recording, we're just basically archiving it from my archives. That way of going.
Yeah, we usually don't talk about something that's positive unless it's really, really good, or else something is really, really bad.
In this case,
so we'll let you know on that.
Yeah, so in this case, we decided to just do something a little nice, just as a change of brevity, because, let's face it, most of the podcasts we just talk about negative things. So doing this every now and again...
Yeah, so let's add a little bit fun and positive light instead of always focusing on the negative such, because always focusing on negativity is not a good thing for mental health.
Yeah, and plus, let's face it, the fact that Elden Ring, a new IP, a new IP beat
Yeah.
Call of Duty.
Yeah. And how long has been, I'm going to focus this on. So, how long has Call of Duty been relevant?
No.
So, if you take the total amount of hours that games have sunk into Call of Duty as a franchise, and that it would up to 2.8
5 million years.
Which is longer than Homo sapiens have been on this earth to be quite a sizable margin. So it's safe to say that Call of Duty is a very successful IP, but it has been around since it launched with 2003 during the World War II shooter craze of the early 2000s.
Let's also not forget that Steven Spielberg was the first one to direct the first Call. No, wait, it was the Medal of Honor game that was the first game. Steven.
Yes,
not the first game, but it was not Call of Duty. Again, interesting. But anyway, let's head back to the article.
Yeah, it has a 17-year history, and that's a long history. So it's fun to see that Elden Ring, its new IP, is beating that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since Activision has not been good on keeping their IP very unique and relevant in times, and just want to be shoving more money in other transactions, like adding Godzilla and Attack on Titan and Vanguard, which is a World War II game.
And let's also not forget that Attack on Titan has a steampunk aesthetic to it.
Yes.
Look, I like World War II shooters as much as the next person. It's fun to to basically have consequence-free violence in World War II, since you know who you're shooting this time. I doubt you're gonna basically, but I feel like this basically is just because of how modern shooters have been just how do I put this, wrong dry. Let's face it.
Yeah, they just have nothing new to break the mold with. They have literally just been by the books and been getting progressively worse with it. They haven't been telling more history about what happened in World War II, which is contrast. World at War has specified that with two factions you played with the Russians, and you also play with the Americans, who are basically fighting two sides of what happened in World War II. So,
let's also forget that EA did Battlefield 1, which was an interesting take because not many shooters take place in the First World War. Because
I find that very interesting.
Compared to the Second World War, where basically it's simple, Allies good, Axis bad, simple as that. World War One is
it's not. I wouldn't say that that's something entirely accurate, but I do see where you're coming from.
Compared to World War One, which basically just complexity, because this was not this was just basically a big cock-up cascade of European powers, old allies coming to fruition. It was just a mess of political madness.
Yes.
So World War II is a lot. I understand, but you get what I mean. The setting is a lot.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. They had a more common enemy that was more, I would say, by the books, and wasn't so hard to get lost in on who was right and who was wrong when looking at it compared to World War One and World War II.
Well, you mean World War One? Because we were.
Yeah, I know World War One versus World War II. Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Let's continue this.
So, although Call of Duty Vanguard was 2021's top-selling video game after launching November, what? All right. Activision's most recent quarterly earnings report blamed the shooter's lukewarm commercial reception. Oh, yeah, the reception. Yeah, sure. Let's not blame the bad video game. Let's blame the reception. Yeah, good job.
Let's also put the fact that because of what happened with Vanguard, Activision is skipping this year. So there's no COD this year, which was the biggest surprise I've ever seen.
Yes, in part for overall earnings that came in about $300 million short of the company's forecast. Activision said Vanguard's lower sales came primarily due to our own execution, but did opine that the game's World War II setting didn't resonate with some of our community and didn't deliver as much innovation in the premium game as we would have liked.
Okay, there's several. Yeah, there's several. The World War II setting isn't bad. It's just basically run dry. It's basically old hat.
Run dry.
It's just old hat at this point. Scratch that. It's an old hat that's basically... It used to be an old hat before it just basically turned to dust. I get it. It's fun to basically go back to World War II because it's not so complex, but at the same time, you've done everything you could do with World War II. There's nothing more to do with it. And Vanguard was just basically just. Let's face it, the rag of World War II, there wasn't even a single drop left because that's how dry it was.
Exactly. Now, if they were to make a steampunk-esque like thing, then I would see Vanguard doing much better. But
actually, well, that would be the Order 1886.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that game that basically just killed its own franchise before the game was even done.
I shoot Nazis with gun, and that's it. That's a headline you can get behind. Not.
Okay. Wolfenstein. The Wolfenstein series did alternative history. It was fun.
Exactly.
It was fun for a time, but the third game just basically was like they didn't put any effort into it.
Mm-hmm. And that's why there hasn't been another Wolfenstein game.
Yeah, well, there'll be another Doom game, but we don't know that. Funny.
Well, yeah, because the Doom game is doing really, really well.
I wonder
why. And I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
Anyway.
But the franchise will likely rebound this November as Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, a reboot sequel in the series' most popular subgenre, was announced 2 weeks ago. It's a sequel to 2019's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which Activision says is the most successful Call of Duty title to date.
Wonder why? Because Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 was actually one of the good ones. So they just
Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was the thing is there's nostalgia to it.
It actually had a good story, fun, good characters. I actually like Price.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I did like 2019's Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I thought it was a new way to break the mold, and I thought it was good. It was good, but it's just I'm scared for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the reboot. But if I'm going to say it, I hope Sledgehammer Games does a good job. I really hope they do.
As soon as the Infinity Ward left and basically reformed Respawn Entertainment, the whole series was going down the hill pretty quickly. You know when the original developers leave that the game is basically now bad.
I mean, that's what happened with the Silent Hill franchise.
Yep, Silent Hill's team basically went away, and the series has nothing but mediocrity. Heck, they even canceled Silent Hills.
Yeah,
because Konami are a bunch of intellectual buffoons that don't understand a good thing when it basically bites them in the ass.
And that was the biggest blue ball I ever had in a long time.
I am not I'm not the biggest horror fan because I really don't like horror, but I would have at least given Silent Hills a try.
Yeah, I was so excited for Silent Hills, but I guess that'll never happen. Regardless, let's continue on with the article. The series should also get a shot in the arm with a sequel to its free-to-play Battle Royale Call of Duty Warzone, which is also expected to launch in late 2022.
They're doing a... Didn't they do a Battle Royale last time? What was it called? Black Ops 4?
No, that was something else.
I thought that was supposed to be... Was it Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was a hero shooter like Overwatch or something?
No, Call of Duty... Call of Duty Black Ops 4 had a Battle Royale feature, but it wasn't mainly focused around.
I must be thinking of another... So they're basically...
Yeah.
They're
trying to make another Call of Duty Warzone, like Battlefield 2042, and we all know how bad Battlefield 2042 is.
I don't get it why EA and Activision I get it. Comparing the two, I'm going to say that Battlefield has the better mechanics than Call of Duty.
Yes. However, it's been safe to say that Call of Duty has been copying in Battlefield, but apparently Battlefield has been copying Call of Duty. So, what the hell happened?
I don't know. Maybe because they're literally the same game. They're just war shooters. You're not getting any fair.
Well, they're not necessarily the same game from a technical standpoint, but I could see why. Regardless, let me pause that. Call of Duty was created by developers who worked on Medal of Honor, a World War II game modeled after Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan.
Because
the film is brutal, unflinching, and a little bit romantic, but Call of Duty would grow into something much more weirder, much bigger, and much more perverse than anyone could have known. It's a part of a military apparatus selling war to the public, and it's fun. So I would say that's how Call of Duty turned into a carnival. But regardless,
let's just be glad that
Elden Ring pulled this rare feat off, and I'm so glad From Software is celebrating this because they deserve it. They really deserve it. They've done well.
I'm going to make a prediction now. I'm going to basically be wrong, and if I'm wrong, you know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to review redo of a healer. Yes, I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Oh boy.
Yes, I'm shooting myself in the foot. I know I'm going to be shooting myself in the foot by the end of this year. What I'm going to say is that Elden Ring is going to win Game of the Year. No contest. Let's face it.
I'm pretty sure it already won Game of the Year.
No
contest. But I
contest.
could be wrong.
I meant at the Game Awards.
Oh, the Game Awards. Oh, okay.
Sekiro won. We can. Then again, 2017 didn't exactly have any good games, so Sekiro was a no.
Yeah. I was gonna say 2017 didn't really have that much variety or competition, but yeah.
I'm happy that From won the first Game Awards because they sorely deserved it.
Mm-hmm. And Kenichiro would be proud for Ashina if he had the Game Award.
I'm sure. Oh, come on. But let's face it, Elden Ring basically just made the year. It was everybody in the Souls community was worried because this was a new take on the Souls. Like, it was open world. It was open world, which we've never had in a Souls game before. Yeah. So this was basically one big risk for From and the whole franchise because one wrong move and this could be considered like a Dark Souls 2 situation. One of the worst in the series.
But they pulled it off. They basically took the risk. They marched onto the D-Day sand dunes and did their country proud. They won. They basically got their base. They got it. So they got the intel.
They won so much. They were so hyped that games like Horizon Zero Dawn that came out in the same month, and I keep saying that maybe Guerrilla Team was a bit suicidal in releasing it in the same month. Yeah. Same month. Because I think they were too overconfident in their game. And now
I think they were just too bold.
Yeah. Honestly, if I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get some Horizon fans on my front door, I kind of forgot about the game until everybody was saying how people were comparing it
to be honest, I had the same thing.
Oh, Horizon was out? Really?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, I do know what Horizon is, but the thing is, it's just not really that relevant compared to Dark Souls. I'm sorry.
Let's see, a generic open world game with basically generic combat, scavenging, and throw in every Ubisoft sandbox, which is not high praise, mind you.
Yeah.
But Elden Ring just broke the mold. There's no let's face it. It basically stuck to its soul's origin like super glue.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully it just didn't compromise. And honestly, sometimes you shouldn't compromise.
Yes.
Well, that's everything I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate for everybody who's joining this stream, and if anybody's watching it after this, please like and share it if you're curious. I have a Discord down below. My Patreon is also linked down below, so is my Twitter. So if you want to support me, that would be lovely. You get special rewards depending on €5 and up. You get basically a special tag on my Discord, as well as get shout out on my videos at the end of every video. And
also make sure to add your own comments and thoughts and opinions on basically what you thought of everything that we said, and basically add your own spin as what you would like to say. We would definitely like to read your comments and definitely add it to our own I would say turns of thinking and also explaining stuff. Because we would actually love to see variety.
Again, I know these are just me and Darc's opinions, and we and Darc share similar opinions when it comes to Souls likes and whatnot, but we'd like to hear your opinions because, honestly, it's nice to hear some fresh opinions on this because me and Darc, we're sitting in our how do I put this? Souls mindset.
Sit in our dark rooms trying to agree on what basically is right and wrong, even though we technically have same opinions.
Yeah, I know. It's funny at how much we agree on basically things about Souls likes, isn't it?
ironic.
And again, we're Souls fans. But if you enjoyed it, again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it greatly. And until we meet again, I hopefully will be having more podcasts now that basically it's...
Well, and it's summertime.
And hopefully I won't get too busy. But again, thank you everybody for joining. Have a great day. May the good blood guide your way.
And feel the old blood.